Ghostbusters is a film that can easily be seen as one of the greatest comedies of all time. It was an instant hit that led to this bizarre Ghostbusters craze of the 80s that brought with it lots of merchandise, a Saturday morning cartoon, and toys to accompany it. The Real Ghostbusters is a cartoon that to this day is still a lot of fun. It turns these paranormal exterminators into more of heroes as they faced a new ghostly threat each week. It also spawned some of the coolest toys ever made, which honestly served as my initial introduction to Ghostbusters in general.
Figment, it's back to the bone. Get me out. Looks like you're really into him, Stan. Zap him. Safe.
In the 90s, everything was edgier. We had edgier comics, edgier music, edgier TV, even edgier cartoons. Nothing was safe, not even Ghostbusters. No, this ain't your mama's Ghostbusters. This is Extreme Ghostbusters. Rather than rebooting the series, Extreme Ghostbusters serves as a continuation to The Real Ghostbusters. It consists of a new younger team with the only returning characters being Egon, Janine, and Slimer. Though it is important to note that the rest of the Ghostbusters do make a return in the two-part series finale.
We came, we saw, we bold!
One of the smartest choices made by this show was to give each of the new team a distinct personality. They could have taken the easy route and made each character mirror the original team, but the approach they took works in favor of the series. The Extreme Ghostbusters consists of Roland, the level-headed mechanic, Garrett, the hot-headed jock who gets around with a wheelchair, Kylie, a character who is best described as the goth of the group, especially considering her fascination with the paranormal.
Why is it everyone thinks I'm Vampira?
Black hair, black nail polish, likes 9-inch nails.
And Eduardo, the laid-back, chill one who I at first thought to be the jerk of the group until I realized that they're all kind of jerks to one another.
Aw, did the Whittles Save for Ages 3 to 5 toys scare our brave Ghostbuster?
With the exception of Roland. Roland's cool.
What about you, bro? You here for the Easy A?
Easy A? I don't really follow rap music much.
I also find it kind of interesting that they don't all wear the same outfit. Eduardo doesn't even wear a uniform, and that actually says a lot about his character. Another example of something easier they could have done, but they took the smarter approach. It's also nice to see Egon return, as seeing his older, more experienced self interact with a younger team is a lot of fun. One of the most odd things about Extreme Ghostbusters is its ability to take ideas that sound absolutely terrible but actually make them work. Unlike the films and Real Ghostbusters, Extreme leaves behind much of the comedy aspect and goes a much darker route. Once again, this may sound like a bad idea, but believe it or not, Extreme Ghostbusters manages to be one of the creepiest children's cartoons ever made. It manages to get away with a lot of things that you'd never imagine to get past censors. The show clearly takes a lot of inspiration from previously existing horror movies, referencing films such as Killer Clowns from Outer Space or Hellraiser. A lot of what makes it so frightening is the imagery. There's a surprising amount of body horror for a show supposedly aimed towards kids. Another thing that Extreme Ghostbusters does that sounds like a detriment but actually works in its favor is the idea to give a lot of episodes some sort of moral. I actually believe the episodes that teach a message to be the best of the bunch, and I think the reason it works so well for the show is that it's going for that horror vibe. And a lot of the best horror movies do contain some sort of moral in its story, whether it be classics like Frankenstein, Night of the Living Dead, Carrie, or even more recent films such as The Babadook or It. One of my favorites was Fear Itself, an episode in which they have to face a ghost that projects each of their greatest fears onto them. Towards the end of the episode, they learn that if they can't face their own fears, they can at least face each other's. It's similar to creatures like Freddy Krueger or Pennywise, where the less afraid of it you are, the weaker it gets. I also really liked the episode The Sphinx, in which Egon is struggling with the fact that he's getting old, but accepts this by the end and uses his wisdom and experience to solve the Sphinx's riddle.
You see, man crawls on all fours during the infancy of his life, on 2 legs during his prime, and walks with a cane in his old age. In case you didn't know, the cane is an ancient symbol of wisdom.
And despite my praise for the show, it is not without its flaws. Something that's kind of odd about it is that it's set in a timeline in which people no longer trust the Ghostbusters, believing them to be con artists back in the 80s.
Back in the 80s, they tried to con the city into believing there were ghosts in order to line their own pockets. But fortunately, they were shut down.
That's totally untrue.
I would be able to accept this if they were just referring to the first film, but this is a continuation of real Ghostbusters, and with how frequently ghosts appeared in that show, it'd be pretty much impossible to fake every single one of those. And besides, the Ghostbusters are exterminators, not vigilantes, so it's strange to treat them as such. Slimer can also be pretty annoying at times, though they seem to have toned him down quite a bit since the previous series. He's basically just there to eat everything and slime everyone again, but I guess his comedic antics does help balance the darker tone of the show just a bit. But despite a few complaints, there's just too much about the show that I did admire. It managed to take something sillier like Ghostbusters and successfully transform it into an entertaining horror cartoon for kids and adults alike. And I feel like that's a genre that we could really use more of. The show only lasted 1 season, but it still had an impressive run of 40 episodes. There was a couple of minor things left unresolved, like Kylie and Eduardo's potential relationship, but I'm perfectly fine with how things ended. Not everything needs a definitive ending. Extreme Ghostbusters is actually really clever in the sense that it doesn't try to be like the original movie. It becomes its own thing while keeping the basic idea of Ghostbusters intact. And with that said, I can confidently say that Extreme Ghostbusters is a show worth checking out. I really enjoyed all the episodes I watched, and I think it's a show both kids and adults will enjoy, especially if you're a fan of horror. Thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful week. Goodbye.